What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to episode number 530 of the Smark Moment Smack Talk Podcast's Hot Tags of the Week, where we're going to be breaking down some of the current events and rumors, news and gossip and hearsay and leaked bogus sheets and some other kind of things that went down in the world of pro wrestling over the past few days that we feel like talking about heading into Royal Rumble tomorrow night. We usually do this a little bit later on in the day after SmackDown, but because Royal Rumble is tomorrow, we figured we'd do this a little bit early. So we're going to have this out before that ends up being the case. So, hey, you get to check that out before we know what happens on SmackDown. It's a little bit different. I'm your host, as always, Tony Mango. Joining me, as always, are Robert DeFelice.
Hello, everyone. Happy Royal Rumble weekend.
And Callum Wiggins.
Yep, same to everyone else. So if people aren't looking forward to a Royal Rumble weekend, then
happy weekend.
Yeah, happy to you as well.
We are going to do our normal stuff here, so we want you to do the normal stuff as well. Drop a comment. Tell us your thoughts on all the topics that we're talking about here. Make sure that you are subscribed to the channel. If you're not, go ahead and subscribe. Pass it along, share things, follow things. We're all at Smark Moment. We got our own Twitter accounts that we'll talk about later on, and yeah, you know the deal by now. If you don't know how to help us and how to support us and what to do with all these things, drop a comment, let me know. I don't think I'm going to do the plugs today. So let's roll along here into this topic, because why not? Brian Kendrick apparently requested his release from WWE, and he's still waiting on it. That was something that I didn't see necessarily coming. It seemed like he was kind of happy in this producer role, and
bro, come on. Seems like a lot of people that were happy in their roles in NXT are, if not getting released, requesting their release.
Well, see, I thought that this was trending in the opposite direction, because he had done this little bit of an angle with Harland, and it was like, oh, maybe he's going to step back in the ring and he's going to be wrestling for them, and maybe it's not going to be as big of a deal as he would want to be elsewhere, but maybe that's kind of like an enticement. Like, hey, look, we know that you are not happy with the way that the producer stuff's going, but maybe if you step back in the ring as well, you can kind of do both, that kind of deal. In retrospect, it's like, okay, well, if I'm Brian Kendrick and I know that I still have a little bit of time left in my career, maybe I do want to just go to the indies, and then if my time with WWE has been good enough, they'll probably hire me back. So I don't know why they aren't releasing him.
I think if they see any value in him, they're not just gonna let people go, especially now that it's like, okay, they're starting to make it public that they want out. Let's try to do something to keep him here.
Do you think it's more of a political thing? Is like Mustafa Ali made it a big deal, so now we're not going to release anybody unless there's like a big problem or something, because we want to send a message that you don't have the power we do?
Yeah. I mean, I don't believe it's that ruthless, but it probably is. I'm just a nice guy.
Yeah, they're a company that's petty enough to make that the reason, and I don't really know otherwise what the purpose of keeping Brian Kendrick around would be. If he wants to go, then I think if he'd have asked for it like 6 months ago, he probably would have been just released and nobody would have thought too much about it.
Yeah, I'm of course assuming he's going to be leaving the company no matter what, because eventually, no matter who it is, if they want out of WWE eventually just goes, all right, fucking whatever, just leave. So what's the purpose? If they don't like what he's doing, if he doesn't like what he's doing, and if they want to part ways with as many people as possible for the budget cuts, and if he wants to be a budget cut, then, what's stopping him? Yeah, it is what it is, right? So on the opposite side of things, we got a signing for AEW. Danhausen popped up on the Lights Out match, middle of nowhere. Did not see that coming. Was expecting, if anything, Johnny Gargano or, somebody like, interfering on behalf of Adam Cole, not somebody interfering and getting involved on behalf of Orange Cassidy. You guys thinking about Danhausen? I'm not super familiar with him, but he's a name that I've been hearing for a while. I think it's kind of interesting.
He's a very fun character. He's a very fun character. And I'll say it again, very fun character. I don't know if I have any interest in watching full-length matches, but I am happy he's there because now he can be entertaining and get a larger paycheck.
He's probably the person that I've now become the most familiar with in terms of just indie wrestling out there without ever having seen a single match that he's ever had.
He's got a point though, because I don't know if I've ever seen a Danhausen match, but I've seen Danhausen bits in the middle of matches. I don't know if I've ever seen a full-length match.
Come to think of it, I'm like, I don't think I've seen a full match start to finish. Yeah.
Which speaks volumes to his ability to get himself over.
Yeah, he's a funny dude, and he does seem to, he seems to have the right connections. Seems to know how to use social media to his advantage. I kind of see the best benefit for everyone involved is the fact that AEW will be able to utilize his character work. He'll be able to use his own social media presence and all that other stuff to sell probably a ton of merchandise. He can align himself to something like the best friends without having to need to wrestle all that often. I think they could even do the thing that they did with Orange Cassidy for the first basically 6 months for his entire AEW run, which is basically he didn't wrestle for the first 6 months of his AEW run. He was just involved in the skits and cutaways and stuff like that. And then they had the match and everyone was super blown away. So they might try and do that with Danhausen as well to just keep people waiting until they finally put him in the ring.
I mean, if his strength is more on the character side, you don't need to have him wrestling the same as you would with people that are like, this guy is a good wrestler and that's his hook,
Well, the thing, I don't know if wrestling isn't his strength because I've just never seen him wrestle.
Right, yeah.
So it's just I know he's small, obviously, so that's some aspect that you'd have to consider.
Who cares at this point? I mean, they're like...
Oh, no, but I don't care. I still think he's a good character. Like, it's still a character otherwise, but maybe that'd be the reason why he's not as actively in the ring as some other people are.
How small is he? Offhand?
Probably not any smaller than
judge by the fact that he looks smaller than Adam Cole, and Adam Cole is small. So,
So pivoting to another company, ROH is going to have a Hall of Fame.
That's great.
I only came across one name so far, which was Samoa Joe. Have they announced anybody else? Because the whole thing is supposed to be...
Joe. Yeah, no announced anyone.
Joe wasn't even confirmed. It seemed like he was.
No. It's just a load of speculation out there. People say this guy has to go into the.
Maybe I misread the post. It was W Inc. or something.
Well, that's.
I would assume Samoa Joe would be one of those first top names because obviously he's not in WWE right now, so it wouldn't be an issue of like how do we get CM Punk or AJ Styles or these other people that have been there. Obviously, Tyler Black is not going to be popping up as a Hall of Famer on ROH when WWE's got him. Oh my God, this ambulance in the background. What are you doing? It is obnoxious when ambulances do this. Whoop, 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 whoop. It's like, oh my God, put the ambulance siren on or don't, Hopefully everybody is okay.
Life,
yeah, I don't want to put it out there as like that's a bigger issue, obviously, but Jesus Christ, knock it off. Or at least do something fun. Have it be like whoa, 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 or something. Anyway,
do you want the Three Stooges to be the siren? Anywho,
I hate the Three Stooges, by the way.
Ridiculous. Joe could be one of the first inducted. I think Daniels makes sense. He was in the first main event for Ring of Honor. I think the Briscoes should just go in by default.
Well, you need to obviously remember the fact that there's only be 4 people that are announced in this first class. The first announcement will be on Monday, the 31st of January, and then one every other subsequent Monday up until their 20th anniversary.
Oh, that's good.
So yeah, Joe obviously does make sense. Someone that definitely merits going into their first Hall of Fame, but then again, probably about a dozen people could lay claim to that as well. And if they're only going to end up 4, then some people are going to miss out.
So Kerry Silkin would be one.
Yeah,
Just as yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so Gary Silkin is obviously a big name in that front. You're looking at obviously Samoa Joe, Christopher Daniels, Punk if they want to go that route, and it would be just like a big name. Danielson's now available. Yeah, Danielson's now available to do that. You could look at someone like a Jay Lethal because I think he's their longest reigning champion. And obviously he was there for a significant amount of time as well, so he's pretty much was part of the furniture at Ring of Honor by the time they went out of business, or not out of business, but stopped being actively.
Stop being in business.
Yeah, so having.
They went on hiatus. The word's hiatus. They went on hiatus.
Because they are coming back. So, yeah, I'm trying to think of anyone else that like immediately. Nigel Guinness.
I think should be.
Yeah, Nigel McGuinness would make sense if they can get him. Homicide.
See, Nigel's somebody who I could assume WWE would be willing to let him make an appearance in exchange for something. Just like, even if it's goodwill. Because Nigel's not going to be somebody who's, well, we're sending Kevin Owens over there and they're getting Kevin Owens for what? Nigel's a commentator on 2 shows, I think. What? NXT UK, and he still does 205 Live, right? Yeah.
You're the only one that watches. You better know the answer.
I quote unquote watch. I have it in the background, usually muted, and then I go, oh, okay, so that one pinned that one. That's pretty much it. But yeah, I'm interested to see who goes into the ROH Hall of Fame. ROH is not a company that I've, strictly followed over the years in any capacity. I've never watched, I think, a full ROH pay-per-view even, but it's still, got a lot of rich history behind it, a lot of great names. So Samoa Joe seems like he would be in that first class to my mind. And I guess we'll find out.
Samoa Joe, I just think of Scott Steiner, and it's terrible.
I guess over the course of the next couple of weeks, we'll have some updates on Hall of Fame announcements and the hot tags. So stay tuned for that.
That's awesome.
Let's talk about the WWE Hall of Fame and the idea that the current rumored plan, which made me literally say out loud, oh God, when I read this, is supposedly we're going to have typical Monday Night Raw. Usually I would assume they would record main event. Tuesday night, we're going to have a typical NXT. Wednesday in WWE isn't anything really. Thursday, we've got NXT UK. And I was assuming Thursday night would be the Hall of Fame. Nope. Seems, according to these details, Friday is going to be SmackDown from 8 to 10. And then simultaneously 205 Live that, nobody really watches on the Peacock network, which we'll talk about later on as well. And the Hall of Fame, which one report says would air on Fox. That's not happening. They're not going to take out the local news stations at 10 o'clock.
Fucking don't air SmackDown. It's like, if you want to do that, just don't air SmackDown.
I would assume it airs on FS1. And then God knows how long that goes, because the Hall of Fame could be anywhere from a pointless hour of like, okay, well, we're just going to rush everything and why did we even bother to do it? Or it could be some 3-hour long, Stan Hansen's going to cut a promo about how you need an opponent type of deal. And then on Saturday at noon, from noon to 3, there's going to be NXT Stand and Deliver. And then, of course, night 1 of WrestleMania. Then on Sunday, night 2 of WrestleMania. Then we get into, another week's worth of the Raw after WrestleMania and the NXT after Stand and Deliver and that kind of thing. And I'm like, oh man, the workhorse in me just goes, I don't want to not be working for essentially like 3 days straight. Like, I don't really want to do that. I was hoping with the Stand and Deliver thing that they would make that episode of NXT that week, just like they're doing with Vengeance Day coming up and what they did with New Year's Evil and stuff.
Until otherwise stated, I feel opinion, that is what will happen.
I really hope so.
The episode of NXT. The Hall of Fame ain't as big of a deal if it's on Friday night. But man, I'm really starting to miss the days of, okay, Friday's Hall of Fame, Saturday's NXT TakeOver, and Sunday's WrestleMania. It was just so much easier, you know?
I still like the 2-day WrestleMania thing until they give me a reason to switch back to it should just be one super long event. But I don't like the Hall of Fame being like, okay, well, that'll happen after SmackDown. And I don't like the idea of like cramming in a random NXT pay-per-view right before night one of WrestleMania. It's exhausting. Not even just for the work side of things, but like if people like you and I weren't doing coverage for these things and all that, just as a fan, it's kind of overload. Do you really want to watch that many hours of WWE throughout the week where you know, for instance, that a lot of it's going to be recap stuff leading up to the pay-per-views?
I don't mind that as much because if you're a fan, you can just choose not to watch, right? And then it becomes, okay, viewer discretion. When you're doing what we're doing and it becomes, who knows, somebody might, anything can be news, then it just becomes overload because you don't have the option of saying, I'll DVR it. I'll watch it later. You know, it's boom, boom, boom. And that's not even counting, as I have to say every year, GCW is doing the collective. They're going to be in Dallas. You know, it's just going to be a lot. And on the one hand, good for wrestling. On the other hand, hey, why don't we scale it back, please?
So since you don't have to be doing that and you're lucky enough to be able to make this decision of I'll watch what I want to watch, what about this appeals to you, Callum? Are you like, would you watch the Hall of Fame as it airs, or would it be like, I'm not going to watch it at all, or I'll just DVR it and watch it later? It does the stand and deliver.
For this hypothetical situation, let's assume you like the majority of what's going on in the product.
Even if not, like, even in the way that you currently are, where you don't really like it. Like, do you think that you would watch a stand and deliver before night one of WrestleMania, or do you think that would just be like, even if I like it, that's too much wrestling in a day or something?
It's not a case of like too much wrestling in a day. I probably would still, if I was into the NXT product, I would watch Stand and Deliver. I don't care anything about the Hall of Fame. I haven't watched really any Hall of Fame ceremony for years and years at this point, because realistically, the fun of the Hall of Fame is just seeing who actually gets announced. I don't really need to see them give their little acceptance speech and stuff like that. If I hear, okay, someone gave a good speech, then I'll check that out post thing, but I don't really care about the pomp and circumstance surrounding the Hall of Fame anyway. Stand and Deliver, yeah, it's not a good idea to put it on before, in my perspective, to put it on like in the hours before WrestleMania, because it is quite exhausting, and it's, even for just a fan watching, I don't think it's going to be particularly ideal to watch 2-3 hours of wrestling, then take however long a break it is in between, and then go back straight into WrestleMania. It's WrestleMania on its own is enough of an ordeal of a weekend for just someone who's watching, that adding Stand and Deliver is not going to make me any more enthralled about it. So, and also just from the perspective of the fact that I don't really care about NXT in the current iteration, the likelihood is that if I feel, okay, this feels like it's going to be too much, I'm not going to watch Stand and Deliver. And the likelihood is that if I'm not going to watch Stand and Deliver over the WrestleMania weekend, I probably won't watch Stand and Deliver at all.
I mean, but it's very valid. Sometimes you just don't get to these things. I honestly, there's still some NXT stuff from the Wednesday Night War that I haven't seen. I haven't seen the ladder match where Priest wins the belt, the North American belt, because I just never, Dynamite was on that night and I had to cover it. Because sometimes if you're just too backed up, you never get around to it.
Would you guys theoretically, out of these two options, because these three options, I guess, technically, the idea of the Stand and Deliver before WrestleMania on Saturday, or I guess, it's the same as if it would be on Sunday. The Tuesday night before Mania or the Tuesday night after Mania? What do you think that if you had the ability to book it, what would you pick?
Before.
Yeah, I'd say Tuesday before. Probably makes most sense.
Depending on how the arena setups and stuff would be, I think that maybe after could make sense too, because you could try to sell a package deal for people and say like, hey, look, on this weekend, try to get off work for
Monday and Tuesday.
You got Friday Night SmackDown, you got the Hall of Fame, you've got WrestleMania Night 1, WrestleMania Night 2, you got another episode of Monday Night Raw, and then you've got Tuesday is NXT, so you got 6 shows from Friday to Tuesday. That would make sense to me.
I guess they could always advertise the show as a first ever wrestling ghost town. Because I don't, especially for Stand and Deliver, because I imagine that will be taking up the majority of the seats in the audience, considering how much NXT is now.
Yeah, the buzz behind it.
Yeah, the buzz behind it might as well be. I just can't imagine them trying to fill up a stadium that's more than a couple of thousand people.
I especially can't picture that this would go over well right before WrestleMania, because it's like, all right, the people that are going to be going to WrestleMania, do you want to wake up earlier and not do something like WrestleMania Access, or just, fucking relax a little bit? Or
go to one of the GCW shows.
Anything like that. Do you really want to go from NXT from 12 to 3, and then I'm assuming, of course, it's not going to be right in the same vicinity, pack up your shit and go over to the stadium for WrestleMania and feel like you're like, oh, I should have been waiting in line 2 hours earlier? Like, that's not how that works.
Very different. It's very different to the older NXT, where again it would still be about a very small percentage, but I imagine there were some people that in the past WrestleMania weekends would go and just see the NXT show and not even go to WrestleMania,
because the tickets would be a lot cheaper and everything too. Yeah,
well, yeah, and they liked NXT more than
and it was knew that you were going to get a great show for sure, no matter what.
Whereas nowadays, that's not, NXT doesn't have that kind of buzz at all, and so the only people that would go to NXT are likely people that would also go to WrestleMania. So, like you say, if it's some sort of really inconvenient thing where basically they have to build their entire day around going to the NXT show and then finding their travel to WrestleMania and the awkwardness surrounding that, after Stand Deliver ends, they've probably got a couple of hours to make their way to wherever the show is, so they'll have to get food while they're there, and that could be annoying because I assume it will cost like $1 million for a hot dog.
Oh, it does, some of these kind of things.
Yeah, so it does seem to be a very inconvenient thing for all the fans that were intending to go to see the NXT TakeOver show.
But hey, you might be able to get Dante Chen against I don't know, Ru Feng. I'm hoping that they have a different report going out eventually. I hope that they announce that Stand and Deliver is just on Tuesday night. It'd be a lot easier to deal with for at least my work side of things. Sorry for anybody who's like, no, I'd rather it be elsewhere. No, I'm going to value my time instead. Let's see. Let's bounce to, this will be an interesting topic. So The Rock is going to do another video game film adaptation, and he didn't say what. He just said that he's, proud to be able to make a movie that's adapting a video game that he's been playing for years. I am 100% going with Call of Duty. What do you guys think it is?
So, in that following that in the article from Men's Journal, he talks about Madden, right? And I can't imagine making like a standalone Madden game, like some kind of like taking one of the career modes. But as you said that, I thought Rock can make a fucking Grand Theft Auto movie.
I can't picture Rock being the lead in a Grand Theft Auto movie rather than Call of Duty. Because Call of Duty, he's the military guy. He's got the whole, he's the big tough military dude.
Been in G.I. Joe. We don't need.
As far as I'm aware, Call of Duty doesn't have characters, right? Aren't you just kind of like guy?
Yeah. It depends on what series.
It depends on the game, yeah.
Like the Call of Duty 4 kind of, and because there's Call of Duty 4 and then there's Call of Duty 4.
Modern Warfare was 4?
Yeah, Modern Warfare off that, yeah, as well. And that follows. I mean, you play as multiple different characters, but it does have one overarching story within it. But there are a couple of ones which have an overarching story, but then again, you don't really. They could come up with something completely independent of those if they wanted to, and just fit it within the quote unquote Call of Duty universe. I mean, Call of Duty is definitely an option. I would say that other things that might stand out, they could do God of War.
That was another one I had seen pitched, which is like, you could
make a good Kratos.
I could see him being Kratos.
You could do Kratos, yeah.
I kind of hope that's not the case because I want him to put everything into Shazam, and if he's doing two things that are kind of like I'm a god fighting other things, then I'm like, maybe somebody else could have played that role,
Callum, what'd you say about the Scorpion King?
It's better than Scorpion King.
Oh, it would be.
Yeah. There's Mass Effect. That's always been is one of the most overarching story-driven video game series of all time, and it lends itself to several sequels as well if they decide to do that.
There's there's Gears of War as well. He could do that. Or
who knows? Who knows? It could be an animated movie where he's Kirby. Who knows?
Fuck yeah, I want this. Especially because Kirby's lines and all these are just kind of like, hi, I'm gonna share some tomatoes with my friends. I want fucking rock as Kirby. That would go so good. Or it's building up this whole thing where,
right?
Yeah, just to Doom.
Give it a second shot.
I'd love for this build up of I just assumed Call of Duty because it's such a big name and everything, and I assumed that Grand Theft Auto would be more so. If you're gonna have was it Michael from the last game? If that's going to be a character in there, it's fucking Ray Liotta, that's clearly that guy. But if this all boils down to being Bubble Bobble, and Rock's just I fucking love Tetris, and I'm going to play the L block in Tetris.
Yes. Also, we don't know how if Rock's quote unquote starring in this movie. I mean, it's
or if he's just the L
or is that it's a cameo thing? Yeah, it's a cameo thing or something on those lines. I'm trying to think of anything else that really stands out from the video game world. It
Pac-Man.
could be a new take on Resident Evil style game, or there must be. I mean, there are
people
tons
wanted
of,
him to voice
video
Knuckles.
game ones. If it's a Call of Duty, it could just be built around Call of Duty zombies.
Yeah, but I don't need to see The Rock beating up zombies.
I'm thinking The Rock's going into this. I'm fully assuming it's Call of Duty, by the way, still. Just picturing a production meeting where The Rock is I think that we've got a story that we can tell with Call of Duty. You've got the military background of a character where you can follow that journey, and then it's essentially a straightforward kind of deal. It's generic action film. That guys are going to go see it. That the video game people are going to be interested because it's a video game adaptation, and it's simple as opposed to being how do you interpret some of these more complicated games? We've seen some really bad video game adaptations over the past, and even the games that seem like they could be a good story sometimes don't pan out like that. So Call of Duty, if it's mostly from at least my perspective, okay, well, let's throw a military guy into some kind of scenario, and then we're going to have you try to win whatever war it is. You can kind of put it into any scenario.
Yeah, but I just don't know what makes that Call of Duty then.
Has there been a Tekken film?
Because in that case, it's just a military movie.
Yeah, that's what I mean, though. I could see them being let's make a generic military movie, but we can call it Call of Duty and it'll make bank.
But they don't. You're thinking with a 2001 mindset. If you're gonna make a gaming movie now, it's not typically that, just bland. Oh, let's just
things like the Witcher or something like that. considering how big of a series that has been. I mean, that's partly based, obviously, video game books like aspect, but there are some better examples than there have been in the past. Obviously, there have been some terrible examples, but
I think the Sonic movie is a
they can make
great
more complicated.
example.
Yeah, they can make more complex movies and turn it into something which is very inherently like built around the video game, but but set in a movie style things. Like you could look at something like Metal Gear Solid or Tekken.
Yeah, Tekken would be pretty good. I think you have fun with that too.
The Uncharted series, like Drake and Uncharted.
Tom Holland's doing one of those.
Oh
yes. Yeah, that's out now or coming out now.
Yeah. So I think that it will be something that leans itself more heavily towards, like, has a story behind it, has an inbuilt story behind it, and there'll be an interpretation of that story, as opposed to Call of Duty, which is just like, I think it's just too generic to really say, oh, this is a Call of Duty movie. It's like, well, what is the Call of Duty movie?
They'd have to like literally rip the script of Zombies or Modern Warfare. They'd have to. I mean, it'd be so to the T that it's a Call of Duty movie.
It could be a Far Cry one. Far Cry's had like 5 or 6 different series, and it's saying that if people were to see elements of it, would make it feel quite more definitively Far Cry than a Call of Duty movie, which is just like guys and guns. Like, what would you do? Would you have some sort of like, oh, I've killed 5 people a row at this point, that means I can call in an airstrike? I'm just thinking of just ways that they could make it seem like it gives gives the Call of Duty story, or gives the story of Call of Duty while still trying to pertain to elements of the actual video game play.
Right, I'm just assuming that they're going to be approaching it from that angle that they've done with other things in the past, where they say, like, it's an original story, it's not based off of any of the games, but we're going to keep it within the spirit of the series.
In that case, I'd rather him do a fucking Madden movie.
Just he plays John Madden.
I mean, honestly, like,
I mean, Tony, I know you wouldn't play games like that, but you don't actually play as John Madden in the Madden game.
No, but that'd be the funniest scenario. It's Madden video game adaptation as a film, and it's just The Rock is Madden doing calls for football. Like, it's just watching a football game, and he's just sitting there going, "Oh, it's going to be a penalty and stuff."
He's the game they're based on is MLB The Show, or like the college football games.
You know what? I'm surprised that there hasn't been yet. Like, out of all these different, games that have been like adaptations that they've tried, and to just slap a name on it and everything, they've done like Space Jam and whatever. Like, what about NBA Jam? How come they didn't do a game based off of that, a movie based off of that, or try to cash in on that?
To play for NBA, play for NBA players. That'd probably be pretty damn expensive.
And they figured it out with other things. I just figured that would be something that maybe they pitched it and it just didn't go through or something. And I don't know. A lot of movies die on the pitch side, but
I think it's a different medium. It's just a case like, I don't think people would be as interested to watch a version of NBA Jam as opposed to play NBA Jam.
Oh, some things definitely don't translate, but
yeah.
The reason that this is on Smark Out Moment is because it's The Rock. So for anybody who's like, oh my God, why are you going to talk about video games here? It's The Rock. So,
I can't imagine anybody would really have an issue with it, but if you do, too bad.
And if you want more about this, maybe we'll cover more over on fanboysanonymous.com. And if you want to make sure that we do more talk about video games and video game film adaptations and movies in general, then, hit up the Patreon, pick your poison tier. We've done like Mortal Kombat fan outs, table, hand track kind of things. So if you want us to watch some other kind of video game film adaptations, I've been wanting desperately to do the Super Mario Brothers one. I'm just saying, it's an option if you want to do it. Anyway, let's move to another thing here. Let's talk about...
We talked about the Hall of Fame. Let's talk about the rumor that came out today in the Observer.
Oh, this might be a hot tag I wasn't even aware of.
That they offered Jeff Hardy a spot in the 2022 Hall of Fame, and he said no.
So I didn't see the story yet. They were offering Jeff Just Jeff?
Yeah, because according to that was a report from Meltzer, and Sean followed it up in a tweet saying that while he couldn't confirm the Hall of Fame stuff, WWE had said they want him back, and Jeff said, "Show me my drug test results."
Ooh. Huh. Okay. Well, you know what? If I were Jeff, I'd probably do the same. I'd probably be like, no, I'm not going into the Hall of Fame as like, you're going to sweeten the deal, get me back just to do that. And I'm going in by myself or whatever. No, I want to go in as the Hardy Boys.
I'll go in as the Hardy Boys. And in the meantime, I'll go have fun doing whatever I want to do.
Good for Jeff if that's the case. And hopefully, obviously, the drug test thing, we've talked about it before. We don't know what the hell's going on with that. So
there's a huge immediacy issue. It's like he's going to be in the Hall of Fame at some point.
Mm-hmm.
But the Hardy Boys will go in at some point into the Hall of Fame.
Well, what did you think when you heard this, Callum? Doesn't that sound like, hey, we fucked up. Can we have you back? And maybe we'll, I don't know, put you in the Hall of Fame. Hey, sorry.
What just screws to me is the case of they don't want him to go to AEW.
Oh yeah, but I mean, like, if they were justified in whatever they felt, they wouldn't care, right?
Yeah, they would. I think that they don't want this guy in particular to go to AEW because say what you will about Jeff, and I've said a lot of positive and negative things about Jeff Hardy in the past. He has an unbelievable following of people that just won't give up on him, whatever we learn about him. And and in this situation, it's still a case of whatever happened in regards to whether he was drunk in that situation or not. It's as more and more seems to come out, it seems to suggest that he wasn't, and I don't want to say it was like some sort of elaborate ruse to get himself out of the company, but there was there seems to be more things at work than just he failed a drugs test or they actually presumed he was drunk and decided to act really quickly on there. I think it's a case of they know this guy is going to go to AEW. He's going to reform the Hardy Boys, and that's going to attract a whole new generation of, well, not a whole generation, but it's going to inspire more lapsed fans to move over onto that side of things, as well as honestly quite modern fans, because Jeff was still one of the top baby faces in WWE at the time that he left.
He was supposed to basically be fighting for the championship either at Day One or Royal Rumble.
So that's a guy in particular, probably in the same boat as a Bryan Danielson, that like they're desperate to keep hold of. And when he goes to AEW, which he inevitably will do, then that's WWE feeling that that's another big hit to them. That's something that will probably strengthen their resolve more about keeping more of their people and preventing other people from like getting early releases from their contract, because they're just looking at that and going, oh, we can't lose another one like that. We need more W's. They're only W's at the moment of the fact that both Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn re-signed.
Bingo, and I want to spin that off because Sami Zayn actually said that he had wanted to work Jeff Hardy, and he was, I'll just read the quote here. He had done a Pat LaPrade's podcast, and he said, I had spoken with creative about a storyline with Jeff Hardy. Jeff was one of my heroes as a teenager. He was one of my biggest inspirations. My idea was to have a ladder match with him at WrestleMania. I had a big storyline planned, but 2 weeks after talking to creative, he was fired.
I really wish we could learn what these stories are. Like, I want to hear what his big pitch was. If it's not happening,
with the amount of podcasts that exist today, we will one day.
Yeah, I also want to know more about the reasons behind them resigning. At the end of the day, obviously, it's a case of they can do whatever they want, both Owens and Zayn on that front, and I assume they're not exactly being lowly recompensed for. I'm sure they're being well financed to stick around, but I kind of want to think about what was promised to them and what is actually happening now.
I think
whether there was anything promised, or whether it was just a case of here's a shit ton of money, please resign. And they just went, okay, yeah, I don't really feel like changing at this point.
And I kind of like, in my mind, I'm thinking it's that because like Sammy does the Sammy for serious stuff. WWE provides a great platform for that, and if they can pay him more money so that he can help more people, he's probably thinking that way. Kevin's probably like, look, I got a family. Let's just go with what we know. And
I'll take that Royal Rumble win.
I'm not exactly unhappy in WWE, and maybe there's a Royal Rumble win in there. Who knows?
Well, I guess that's another story to track to see what's happening with Jeff Hardy with that. That's interesting that the pitch would just be like, you can go into the Hall of Fame because we think that your career is pretty much done. Like, that's insulting more than anything. I mean, obviously there's like a level of respect that goes into, we want to induct you into a Hall of Fame, but when you're Jeff Hardy, you're going in. So
yeah, but they always
to pitch that like you can go to the Hall of Fame now because we're just wrapping you up is kind of like,
and it's not like he's Kane, where Kane has entered a whole new field. He's still got a ways to go in wrestling, I think, for Jeff Hardy, and hopefully we see him soon.
So let's talk about some streaming stuff. Disney Hotstar is going to be airing the WWE Network in Indonesia. That is, as Rob put it, the first step towards this idea that he thinks that Disney is going to buy WWE.
To be clear, no, Rob doesn't think Disney's going to buy WWE. Rob wants, if any company's going to do it, for it to be Disney, because Disney's great. I'd rather Disney than it get folded into NBC Universal. That's my mentality.
NBC Universal, that's the other side of this. Peacock, apparently a major financial loss is the wording that it's been used for Comcast in 2021. And here are some of the numbers that a couple articles had said. They have currently, or at least this report had said, 24.5 million accounts on Peacock. And they lost over the course of 2021 $1.7 billion. That they made $778 million in revenue.
So when did Peacock start?
2020, I think, because the 2020 numbers before the WWE deal, at the very least, were put on this. Before WWE came into the mix, 2020 was an adjusted loss of $663 million. They made $118 million in revenue. So the difference being they made $660 million more in revenue and lost about 700 million more. That's not good.
But these ventures, they always start at a loss, don't they?
Yeah, but you would think
I'm
that...
sure it's not gonna, I'm not saying they're gonna do Disney numbers, but maybe they'll get better over time.
This is another thing I find interesting about it. So in 2021, the loss was, again, 1.7 billion. 559 million of it was Q4 alone.
Ooh.
That is really telling. That means that people signed up for Peacock, more in WWE's side of things, when Peacock had this transition at the beginning of the year. And then over the course of the past couple of months, people dropped off. And then when it got to the end of the year, people went, nope. And massive decline.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, this comes from someone who's in a very uneducated position, because obviously I don't have access to Peacock, and it's a fundamentally US streaming service. But very wrong, but is there anything that Peacock actually offers that you can't get anywhere else?
Technically speaking, it's if you want to watch like The Office or Friends or some of those, because some people do just subscribe to that stuff because they just binge that all the time.
Friends is on HBO Max, but
Oh, they're still there? I thought that they were on Peacock. Dad, they don't even have that.
Yeah, so it's hard to again quantify for me because all the Office, all the US Office, and all Friends are available on Netflix in the UK. So that's like
you jerk.
Yeah, so I can't. And also just from someone who has lived in the UK forever, if you just want to watch an episode of Friends, there will be an episode of Friends on TV at some point on some channel somewhere. So
yeah,
it works that way here too. Put it on TBS, and I guarantee you they're either showing some Seth MacFarlane cartoon or Friends.
Or Big Bang Theory, or something. Yeah. But yeah, that's so I don't really see what the appeal is. I don't know why they would imagined. I assume WWE was meant to be some kind of the appeal element. If they were doing that, they clearly weren't looking at the actual numbers that the WWE Network was getting prior to purchasing it in the first place. It does seem like this is a failed venture. Peacock, I think NBC have either overreached or have thought that all the other people are doing big streaming services, we should get on that as well, and their offering is just nowhere near as enticing as other ones.
So there are so many platforms, but if we break it down to just the original three, ABC, CBS, and NBC, if you look at those and the streaming platforms that they've spawned, Paramount Plus at least has all of South Park, the entire Nickelodeon catalog, and some originals here and there. Peacock has
Paramount
WWE.
Plus even has you could go in and watch Legends of the Hidden Temple and stuff.
I believe so.
So that's a massive thing right there. I would have thought Nickelodeon could make its own little offshoot niche streaming platform.
Well, they're also owned by Viacom CBS. I guess they just merged. Yeah. And then there's ABC, which has its properties split across
Hulu and Disney and
but again, we're right back to Disney. And Disney has all the packages where you can get the ESPN, the Hulu, and then Disney Plus is just a great offering. If you're gonna have to start being choosy, I wouldn't own Peacock if it didn't have the network. I would no reason. There's no reason.
I've watched, I think, only AP Bio on there.
I haven't watched a single other thing outside of the network.
Also, for anybody who's curious, I found these numbers too for Comcast, just because we talk about it here and there about the streaming wars and how it's all funneling towards the same exact thing, so we don't need to repeat ourselves a million times. But their broadband subscriber net plus was 212,000 in Q4, down from 538, and their net loss went up again for paid TV subscribers. So it was 248,000 and it was 373,000 this time around, meaning we're once more heading in another direction of people don't want to pay for cable. People need the internet, and there's too many streaming services out there for them to survive. So they're all just going to struggle and lose lots of money until the few of them that actually want to stick around snatch up all the other companies. They merge things together. They offer you package deals. So then that becomes the new cable. It's happening. Peacock, at least, probably looking at WWE now and going, fuck. Because that's not good to go from those numbers in 2020 to the numbers in 2021. It's not like, okay, they lost less than last year and made more. No, they made more in revenue, but they lost a lot more than they made for that up. You make 600 million more and you lose 700 million. What's the likelihood that in 2022 you're going to make back not only that 600 million or that 700 million to even yourself, but to make on top of that a profit, and you got to work backwards to how do you got to start making the money back from 2021 and 2020. It's not working out all that well. I'm thinking that this Disney Hotstar thing is WWE's attempt to be like, look, we're just going to go anywhere that people are willing to purchase our stuff, but also that way, maybe if it works well enough, we could be like, oh, you know, when the Peacock deal's over with Disney, what are you interested in buying the whole thing? And then Disney will probably have the numbers by then to know whether or not it's worth it, and then we'll see. But it wouldn't shock me if when this Peacock deal is over with, if Peacock doesn't want to keep the WWE deal.
I'm trying to like look at what they've got. There's something called Wolf Like Me. There's something called American Rock Stars. It looks like about Olympic players. There's True Story with Ed and Randall. No idea. Like they don't have anything that's really enticing. I mean, okay, you've got Law and Order, and if you aren't like just good on your Law and Order, I don't know what to say. You got Real Housewives. You need to binge that. Again, don't know what to say. It sucks because you don't want to see anyone really go through struggles, but something was going to give, and we knew from the beginning because we all said, "Why Peacock?" And you know, look what's happening.
So we got 2 more hot tags written down, at least from my perspective, unless there's another thing that surprisingly gets added in there. There's a thing going around. Look, I don't buy into it, so I'll put it out there. It seems like it's probably not true, but there was at least some kind of a Royal Rumble sheet of like, this is the breakdown of how the Royal Rumble is going to go. And since it's a thing that maybe, I don't know, some of this seems kind of realistic. It's worth talking about because the Royal Rumble hasn't happened yet. So if you don't want to know what this says, just in case it is a spoiler, skip forward a few minutes. But the way that this is breaking down would have, again, spoiler, skip if you don't. It would be Kevin Owens starting at number 1, Sami Zayn following him up. Eventually, the big talking points are Tommaso Ciampa would be in there at number 4. Johnny Knoxville would be in there around number 7. So you would assume that the Sami Zayn and Knoxville thing would be over around by the time at least number 10 comes out. That we would go through with Pete Dunne at number 12. Eventually, Omos would show up at number 17. And Omos would eliminate, it's looking like Mansoor, Santino, Pete Dunne, and then get tossed out by Riddle and Orton. So it's just the 2 people team up, and that's how they get him out of there. That Alberto Del Rio would show up at number 18. Austin Theory's at number 20. Randy Orton comes in, you know, that kind of thing. Go through
The other one being Moose at 28.
AJ Styles would be popping up at number 25. Moose would be 28. Apollo Crews would be 29 because there's the connection between Apollo and Moose. And then Drew Gulak would be the number 30 entrant, but Roman Reigns would basically replace him. By the end of this whole thing, you would get a couple of eliminations here and there, mostly 3 apiece, with 4 being for Sheamus. He would get the most eliminations, which I think is kind of interesting. Kevin Owens would last 50 minutes, and he would be the Iron Man, just pretty much beating out Big E at 46 minutes. So you would assume that Big E would be around that Final 4 kind of range. Riddle would be there for 44 minutes. He would be there for a good chunk of the time, so he might be in the Final 4 or so. And I guess Matt Riddle would take out Roman Reigns, and the winner would be AJ Styles. Again, I don't buy into this. I don't think this is what's happening, but I'll credit the people that made this up. Outside of a couple things, this makes sense.
There's some... The person, whomever made this, has a good understanding of the way these things work, and just threw in some ridiculousness. Like, Del Rio's not gonna fucking do anything. You know,
he's not gonna be in this. If he's in this match, I am utterly shocked.
Although we will talk about some names that have been rumored for the women's Royal Rumble. I could see AJ winning. Like, I could see AJ winning being like okay, we're gonna throw you the bone, like with Shinsuke when he won in 18, and they knew they were gonna do Roman and Lesnar.
And then they do AJ versus Styles, and Kevin Owens is free to do the match with Edge.
Yeah, they do AJ versus Rollins, and then Owens would be free to do whatever.
Did I say AJ versus Styles?
Yes, you did, and I just glossed right over it.
You know what I meant.
I could see Kevin and Sami starting out, because why not? Right? Like, I think that would make a lot of sense.
And it shows that on this thing that they will be working together to eliminate Angelo Dawkins. So it would be like, okay, well, they start fighting each other, and then it's like, oh, let's team up because we're both heels. Like, kind of like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, this guy or whoever wrote this up, they went through their tropes. They did their homework. They've got realistic times for a lot of people too. Like, it's only 7 minutes for this person. It's only 16 for the other one. But then there's a 2-minute thing for Happy Corbin. Like, pretty damn good job.
But that being said, it's obviously bullshit. They don't map out the times for people in the Royal Rumble that far in advance. But then there's other stuff, like Bad Bunny's been rumored for the Royal Rumble. I can totally see that happening.
He's been rumored. Shane McMahon?
I hope not.
Been rumored.
I'm good on Shane. Oksana is in St. Louis. Why? Oksana was fine, but she wasn't even a wrestler when they were barely wrestling. You know what I mean? Like,
was she fine?
I mean, she was there. She had a little angle with Teddy Long. It was fine. But you don't need her for the Royal Rumble, do you?
WWE legend Oksana. Now, like, Melina, cool.
Like, Melina, Cameron, absolutely. Hell yeah. Oksana?
Does that make you more interested, Callum? Fucking Oksana might be back.
I mean, to be fair, none of these ones make me particularly excited. Like, even Melina or definitely not Cameron.
Melina, hold on. Melina and Alicia Fox need to be in the ring at the same time as Cameron and just do it. Like, it would get such a pop. You know what I mean? And if that's all these things are anymore, it's pop factories. Just do it. Like,
that's how you started off. Number 1 and number 2, and then number 3. And it's like the number 3's Cameron, and she just sits off, and she's just kind of like, "Hey, this is so good."
The number 4 could be Shayna, and just toss them all out.
Well,
yeah, I'm not going to be enthralled by it. Let's put it that way.
Are there any last predictions and updates that you guys want to toss out for the Royal Rumble, since it is tomorrow and SmackDown hasn't happened yet, so we don't know if they're going to announce, like, Cesaro fills in a spot and that kind of thing, but any other, like, oddballs things since we recorded before?
I don't think so. I just think it'll be a lot of fun. A lot of people seem to think that there's no chance in the world anybody but Bianca, Bliss, or Rousey, and I don't see Bliss even entering this match.
Yeah, there's nothing that I've seen put out there that's made me any more just changed any of my thoughts from our recording on Wednesday. I think it's I still think that the heavy favourites of the women's match are still Ronda, if she's available and she's actually in the match, or Bianca. They seem to be like in my mind, they feel like the only two. And then I still think it's whichever one of Brock and Roman doesn't win their title match is going to win. So nothing that I've seen has changed my opinion on those. Because any of the people that are here as like quote unquote surprises or have been in St. Louis aren't people that are going to win. They're just people that are there for a nostalgia pop. So yeah, no other changes.
Well, despite the fact that we can't talk about SmackDown, let's run through any TV things that are worth talking about. We already talked about Monday Night Raw, essentially. We pretty much talked about NXT leading up to that. We didn't mention that Raquel did a mean, though. Inside joke. NXT UK, we had the empty arena match. Ilya Dragunov defended it against Jordan Devlin. We got a setup that there's going to be a Japanese street fight for the NXT UK Women's Championship next week. I don't know what a Japanese street fight is. I'm assuming it's exactly the same as a street fight.
That puts B. Priestley and Meiko Satomura in the same ring.
I'm assuming she wins the title there.
Yeah, I would doubt so.
Which means that they would have this track record of let's do the match, they fail, and then they get a rematch, and then they win. That would just be... Is that the Shawn Michaels method? It seems like it might be. Because it would have happened with, I think, Mustache Mountain.
All three. It happened with Meiko.
Meiko beating Kaylee Ray. I think Mustache Mountain had a match against Pretty Deadly, and then they won the second one.
It happened with Dragunov.
And Tyler Bate was in the Heritage Cup tournament.
Did go for the cup a couple of times, and then finally got it around.
So that might be the HBK special. On the WWE side of things, that's all pretty much.
Speaking of, though, it happened with Breaker as well.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, Breaker lost against Ciampa, won the second time around. So I guess if you are getting your championship, that doesn't matter. If you're getting your second championship title shot, that's when you really got to, put some emphasis on there. But speaking of championships and switching over to AEW, I think the real main thing to talk about on the TV side of things this week was we have the Sammy Guevara versus Cody Rhodes ladder match for the undisputed TNT championship, because they had the interim championship in the meantime. Great match with what I'm assuming is probably going to be my top high spot of the year for that, which was Sammy Guevara's jump from one ladder to the other in the cutter. That was fucking great.
It's so early in the year, but that is such a good fucking spot. And they did it. You'd think they did this a million times. You'd think they were a video game. They nailed it. And by the way, what a great, great ladder match.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, that's a great moment. It was a great match. I don't know whether I'm gonna go. I would at the moment go with that top of the ladder cutter or the fucking swanton bomb, which nearly ruptured Sammy in half, pretty much. The ladder not breaking. I don't know if I can count that as like spot or a botch, really, because it would be a botch if Sammy couldn't get up afterwards. But just seeing his body just completely bend one way and then the other while landing on the ladder was pretty remarkable to watch as well.
And Cody deserves some credit too. I mean, that crossroads, again, you'd think he did it a million times. It can't be easy to do, and he did it.
He has done the crossroads a million times.
I mean, not off the ladder. That's so good.
Any other things from AEW you guys want to talk about?
They're setting up for a Texas Death match between Paige and Archer, so it makes sense in a way. I don't think they've obviously haven't put a huge amount of steam behind this match yet, but then again, it is just a filler feud for Paige. But choosing a Texas Death match is the smart way of doing it because Archer won the New Japan title, New Japan US title in a Texas Death match against Moxley. So using that as his match specialist, his specialist match, helps add a little bit of jeopardy into it. I want to talk about the Britt Baker segment, if I may, just a little bit. I don't know what they're doing with this stuff. It's bizarre because we've spoken a little bit, especially on the AEW Awards, about how they have been progressing with their women's division, and I definitely still think that's the case. But the fact they have they clearly have nothing in mind for the women's championship match, either at Revolution or just in general, is utterly baffling to me. That they decided to, in my perspective, waste 5 to 10 minutes of their television time with Britt Baker just talking at the Cleveland audience without anybody coming in or anybody being mentioned or anything in that regard. it does make you feel like, well, what exactly is your plan for Revolution? Is because at the moment, if I was watching the TV and I was just seeing all this stuff happening, my expectation for Revolution is that Britt Baker's not on the card.
Mm-hmm.
Or if she is on the card, it's not in a match, it's in a promo segment.
Who's number one rank right now? Do you know offhand?
I'd have to
Layla.
check the
Layla?
It wouldn't. Yeah, it would make sense. Well, if we look at the let's see, AEW rankings as of 26th of January, so it is currently on the 26th. So this is prior to, I presume, the actual AEW show. It was Red Velvet who was number one.
Okay, so
but she's now lost Layla Hirsch. So Layla's is 4-0. And then you've got Serena's 2-0, Thunder Rosa's 1-0, Anna Jay's 2-1. But you just look at those ones, and Layla's a heel right now, so it seems odd that she would go after Britt Baker. Serena's heel as well, so again, that's a bit of an odd dynamic. You wouldn't go with Red Velvet after she just lost to Layla Hirsch. You wouldn't go with Anna Jay after she lost her TBS title opportunity. If you're doing the Thunder Rosa thing, then you really should have started a while ago.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't even got to the Thunder Rosa and Mercedes Martinez match. I really think that they should have at least used this, and maybe even a couple of weeks prior, they should have been putting in motion the Jamie Hayter match. That seemed like the most logical way of doing it. Like they like at the start of the year, they've been teasing tension between Jamie Hayter and Britt Baker, and this could be a chance
to some battle. So the hard thing with AEW is that they announce matches with like high stakes out of the fucking blue sometimes.
Right.
So they'll announce some battle royal or something.
I know they'll find some way of doing it. Just like it's why I've been probably more underwhelmed with the entire Britt Baker title reign than some other people are. It's just a case of she's held the title because she's the biggest star they have on the women's division, but because of that gap between her and pretty much anyone else not called Thunder Rosa and not Jade Cargill, because they want to keep those two separate, it means that every single feud that she's been in for the women's title has been so underwhelming. I know people will talk about the fact that when Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa do fight off again, it should be like a main event of one of the pay-per-views, and I'm kind of thinking, well, this title doesn't mean a great deal. Why should that be the main event of a show when this title doesn't really mean anything? Because
I think that mentality is strictly progressive, and they have a big enough feud, so it should.
Maybe they are planning on just bringing somebody in, and it'll be like
how Ruby got the shot at
right, yeah, like Athena pops up, and she's the interesting thing is that she's now in the company and she gets a title shot, and that's just what they're going to do like 2 weeks before Revolution.
I mean, you have the advantage right now that it's so early in the year that someone could come in, just win a few matches. Like, you could get them, tell a story of them winning a few matches on Dark and Dark Elevation. They can get a title shot based off the back of that. But like, just to have that segment on TV, it just made it so abundantly obvious that they haven't prepared anyone for that role. It's almost like they wrote that segment thinking about, okay, so Britt's going to come out and she's going to bury Cleveland for a little while and talk about her PWI awards, and then we'll get this person out. Who's that person? And then just like stared at a wall and just went, oh, we don't have anyone. That's we've already booked the segment. We've already got the time dedicated. Oh, just send her out there. Then she's Brit. She'll be great on the mic. She always is. And then just move on from that point without actually knowing any consequences of that.
You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of Michaels holding any title, where it's like, you're glad Sean's got the belt, but he's not. Like, if you look at Michaels as any champion, he doesn't actually do anything with the belt. It's just cool that Sean was champion. And I feel like that's what Britt Baker's role is right now, where it's like, it feels like it's a big deal that she's champion because she's popular and that is their top belt for women. But if you really dissect it, there's not much there.
Other than that, from the AEW side of things, I mean, they're adding more fuel to the Inner Circle breakup. Which I think they've had to adapt a little bit because Eddie Kingston's currently out injured. So,
and they really should have just lost that match against Pinnacle.
Yeah, I mean, I think was it Kingston has a broken orbital bone at the moment.
Yeah.
So they're gonna have to pivot a little bit. We're trying to stretch out a little bit this Jericho's animosity with the Santana Ortiz. I'm looking forward to whatever the House of Black has got coming up next, because that looks fun. They can't do Jade Cargill against Julia Hart on Rampage, so that's interesting. I'm interested to see how Julia Hart kind of performs in that match. Not so much because I know she's got obviously she's going to lose, but it'll be a case of, does she show a bit more viciousness? Is she going to be a bit more, or is she going to be a bit more disorientated or something along those lines because of the transformation she's seemingly going through?
And she's only got one eye right now.
yeah. And then we obviously talked already about the Danhausen thing and the whole actual Orange Cassidy and Adam Cole match.
No, it was fine, right? Like,
it was a fun match, but where the fire truck is doesn't seem to agree with it.
I muted it for a little bit there because it started to get kind of crazy.
But I can't say that I'm particularly enamored with the way that it ended. I'm not particularly enamored by the fact that Orange Cassidy beats a guy of Cole's stature.
Yeah, and that's how I feel too. I've already beaten this to the ground. You guys know I think Adam Cole is a top star, and it's not that I don't think Cassidy is. It's that they had a chance to elevate him several times now, and he's just sort of the whatever guy. So I really don't see why he needed to beat Adam Cole.
He's the whatever guy.
It's the same approach they did with the lights out match between Baker and Rosa. Is the fact that Baker lost the match so they could give Rosa, the babyface, the victory at the end of the feud, but then Baker was the one that became champion immediately afterwards.
They've done 3 lights out matches, have they? Right? They did the Mox, Kenny.
They've done one between Kenny and Joey Janela as well. That was on Dark.
That was on one of the first Darks, right?
Yeah, but I think they're the only ones. So it's Page and not Page. It's Omega and Moxley, Baker and Rosa,
and each time they do the exact same trope. It's to give the other person who wins a major win, while looking at the heel, or the soon-to-be heel in Omega's case, and saying, "Oh, you don't have any blemish. You got nothing to worry about." And it's a bad trope, especially in this case, because I get that people like Orange Cassidy. He's a fun character. He didn't need to win here.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, this should pivot into Cassidy challenging for the world title or the TNT Championship, but he's not even ranked. And this match doesn't count, so he won't be ranked off the back of it. So the likelihood is that Cole will probably face Page at Revolution. He'll probably lose, but he will be the guy that seems most positioned to challenge Page at Revolution. At the moment, my two picks for Page's opponent at Revolution are Cole and Andrade.
I'd be cool with Andrade, even though he seems to be building something with Darby and Sting. But I'd be all right with just Andrade loses to Hangman. They have a great match. You can move on, because I don't want Cole in the title picture until he's winning a belt, because you can't hurt his credibility too much.
Well, actually, scratch that. My choices for Revolution are Cole, Andrade, or Punk. Because if they're going to do the Punk and MJF match next week,
true,
which is what they're saying, then there's a good possibility that the winner of that match is the guy that challenges Page at Revolution.
And they seem to have a lot of stock in MJF just being I'm not going to do anything. Wardlow, you're going to win this ladder match, and then you're going to give me the belt. You're going to give me the TNT belt.
And Punk's 2-0 this year already, so he's beaten both Wardlow and his name just escaped me for a second there.
Sean
Spears.
Sean Spears. Yeah. It's Sean Spears. So if he was to beat MJF next week, then he goes 3-0, which is the same as what Archer and Cole are. So he'd almost certainly be ranked at that point.
Or does Archer beat Hangman in the Texas Death Match? And even though I hate this philosophy, and then it becomes, well, now you beat him in the non-title death match, fight him in a regular match for the belt.
Isn't the death match?
Isn't it for the title?
Match? Oh, I don't think so.
Archer's ranked. He can fight for the title.
I just assumed that it was for the title.
Yeah.
Well, it should be, but all right.
I mean, Page will win that match anyway, so it doesn't really matter either way. But I think that it's at the moment I'm not super sure about the direction for a lot of things for Revolution, even though the shows week to week have still been good. At the moment I couldn't tell you.
They cram too much shit on TV.
Yeah, at the moment I couldn't tell you who Page's opponent, Baker's opponent, Guevara's opponent, Jurassic Express's opponent, Jade Cargill's opponent, or literally any of their champions. I don't know who they'd be facing at Revolution. And if Kingston isn't back healthy at that point, I can't even tell you what Jericho is doing at Revolution either. So
fuck it, put Jericho against Hangman. Let Jericho get some wins.
Yeah, the only thing that I feel confident about what's going to happen at Revolution is Moxley versus Danielson, but that's about it, really.
Let Jericho get some singles wins. Let Hangman get his win back from the first All Out, and you can move on from there.
I guess we're gonna next week or so. That's gonna be a rush of setting up a lot of those
45 things set up for Revolution,
right?
And we give them, or at least I do, give them leeway because the shows are good. But there is a sense of like, and here's this next big boom. Now look over here. There's flying pigs. Like, look, now look over here. There's so much happening, and it's like, y'all gotta chill. You just started 3 years ago.
It's just a little airborne. It's still good.
Yeah.
Well, we will figure out that stuff as it happens. And then, of course, we'll talk about that on the hot tags down the line. But those are the hot tags heading into SmackDown tonight. Something might change for the Royal Rumble. And if it does, we will update the page on smark@moment.com and tell you about any of those changes that do happen. If they announce people or if a match gets added or changed or anything along those lines. So stay tuned for that. And tomorrow, Royal Rumble's happening. Live coverage on smark@moment.com. Live pay-per-view point post-show podcast happening, I'm assuming around 11. I'm assuming that that's probably when they're going to be ending. But if you are subscribed and you ring that little notification bell, then you'll know when we go live because it'll send you an email alert. So make sure that you are following us on Facebook and Twitter at smark@moment. Check out the Patreon, hit the little join button, and do the members-only type content, the Darkcast and the Pick a Poison tier and all that stuff. Pick up the merchandise on TeePublic and Redbubble. Follow the Fanboys Anonymous stuff that we mentioned earlier. If there's any more stuff about The Rock and the video game stuff, maybe we'll do a little bonus features or something over there. And follow me at Tony Mango and follow Rob at Dude Felice.
Yeah, check me out at Dude Felice everywhere. Check out Fightful. Check out Fightful Select. Sean is on location in St. Louis, so there's going to be a lot of news, I'm sure, over on Fightful Select. And we will keep bringing that to you. But as far as my personal stuff, yeah, it's at Dude Felice everywhere, and I always appreciate the support. Now I toss you over to Kel Miggins.
Yep, and you can find me at Wigmeister14 over on Twitter. And yeah, always, as per usual, check out the smark@moment.com website. Check out all the articles, all the weekly stuff that's going out on there. But if you have to prioritize one in your busy day, then make sure the Power Ranking is the one that you visit. I'll be putting out the latest edition prior to the Royal Rumble, so you get to see who's highly positioned at the point that the Rumble takes place. And then next week, you'll have to imagine that whoever wins both of the Rumble matches will be very high up on the positioning there. So stay tuned for all of that.
Anything else happens, you know where to find it. So hopefully you guys have a great Friday. Hopefully we are talking to you tomorrow and having a great Royal Rumble day. And we'll see you then. But for now, this has been another Smark Out moment, and we're being counted out.